Have you ever had someone you loved turn into your worst nightmare? Today, I'm going to tell you the unforgettable true story of Maya Sinclair, a brilliant architect whose ex-boyfriend didn't just break her heart. He systematically tried to destroy everything she'd built, sabotaging her projects and poisoning her professional reputation. Until the day Dante Rosso, the devastatingly intense CEO who just acquired her firm, witnessed the final act of betrayal and spoke 3 words that would change everything. "Stand behind me." The emergency meeting notification flashed across Maya's phone at 4:47 p.m. on a Friday, never a good sign. She'd been in the office since 6 that morning, putting final touches on the Hartwell Tower proposal, a 30-story mixed-use development that represented the biggest opportunity of her 7-year career. The design was innovative, sustainable, and exactly what the client wanted. It was perfect. Which should have been her first warning that something was about to go catastrophically wrong. Maya gathered her materials and headed to the main conference room, her heels clicking against the marble floors of Sterling and Associates, the architectural firm where she'd worked since graduating from Columbia. Through the glass walls, she could see the senior partners already assembled, their expressions grave. Her stomach dropped. And then she saw him. Brandon Fletcher, her ex-boyfriend, sat at the far end of the table looking perfectly composed in his expensive suit, his handsome face arranged in an expression of concerned professionalism that Maya recognized as complete fabrication. They'd dated for 3 years, been engaged for 6 months, and broken up 8 months ago when she discovered he'd been systematically stealing her ideas and passing them off as his own to advance his career at a rival firm. What the hell was Brandon doing here? "Maya, please sit," Richard Sterling, the senior partner, gestured to a chair. His tone was cold, formal, nothing like his usual avuncular warmth. Maya sat, her mind racing. Around the table were the other senior partners, Patricia Chen, Michael Rothstein, and David Kumar. All of them looked uncomfortable. None would meet her eyes. "We've called this meeting to discuss some serious allegations," Richard began, his fingers steepled in front of him. "Mr. Fletcher contacted us this morning with concerns about the Hartwell Tower project." "Concerns?" Maya's voice came out sharper than intended. "What kind of concerns?" Brandon leaned forward, his expression grave and apologetic in a way that made Maya's skin crawl. She knew that look, had seen him use it countless times to manipulate clients and colleagues. "Maya, I hate to be the one to bring this up, but I discovered something troubling. The core design concept for Hartwell Tower, the asymmetric vertical garden system that's the centerpiece of your proposal. It's nearly identical to a concept I developed 6 months ago for the Meridian project." Maya's blood turned to ice. "That's a lie." "I have documentation," Brandon continued smoothly, pulling out a leather portfolio. "Time-stamped files, preliminary sketches, even emails to my team discussing the concept. Maya, I know our breakup was difficult, and I understand you were angry about you stealing my work," Maya cut in, her voice shaking with barely controlled fury. "About you passing off my designs as your own for the Silver Lake Commission, about you sabotaging my career for 3 years while pretending to love me." "That's a serious accusation," Patricia Chen said coldly. "Do you have proof?" "I have the original files on my personal computer at home, time-stamped months before Brandon's supposed documentation." "Documentation that could easily be manipulated after the fact," Brandon interrupted gently, his tone suggesting he was dealing with an unstable person. "Maya, I think the stress of this project has been affecting your judgment. I'm not here to attack you. I'm here because I'm ethically obligated to report intellectual property theft." The room tilted. Maya gripped the edge of the table, her mind racing through the implications. Brandon wasn't just trying to discredit her. He was setting her up to take the fall for plagiarism. If the partners believed him, her career was over. Worse than over, she'd be blacklisted, unemployable, professionally destroyed. "The Hartwell presentation is scheduled for Monday morning," Richard said heavily. "Obviously, we can't move forward with material that's under intellectual property dispute. Maya, we're going to have to pull you from the project and launch an internal investigation. You're pulling me from Hartwell? Maya's voice cracked. Richard, I've spent 4 months on this project. It's my design, my concept, my work. Which is exactly what I said about the Meridian project, Brandon interjected, his voice heavy with false sadness. Maya, I tried to handle this privately, but you left me no choice. I can't let you destroy your career by presenting stolen work. This is insane. Maya stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. He's lying. Everything he's saying is a calculated lie to destroy me because I exposed what he did. Enough. Richard's voice cracked like a whip. Maya, these are serious allegations from both sides. Until we sort this out, you're suspended from the Hartwell project. Brandon has agreed to serve as a consulting advisor to ensure the design moves forward ethically. The words hit like a physical blow. Maya stared at Richard, then at the other partners who still wouldn't meet her eyes, and finally at Brandon, who watched her with barely concealed satisfaction. He'd planned this. Every moment of this ambush had been carefully orchestrated. Brandon knew the Hartwell project was her career-defining moment, and he'd chosen this exact time to destroy it. To destroy her. You can't do this, Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. It's already done, Patricia said flatly. Clear out your files on the Hartwell project and go home. We'll contact you next week about the investigation. Maya's hands trembled as she gathered her materials. This couldn't be happening. She survived Brandon once, had rebuilt her reputation after their breakup despite the whispers he'd spread about her being difficult and unstable. And now he was doing it again, but worse. Publicly, officially, with documentation she somehow had to prove was fabricated. She was at the conference room door when it opened, and a man walked in. Maya had never seen him before, but his presence immediately commanded the room. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, and eyes so dark they were almost black, currently sweeping over the assembled group with an expression of cold assessment. He wore a charcoal suit that screamed money and power, and moved with the controlled grace of a predator who knew he was apex. Everyone in the room stood immediately, expressions shifting from discomfort to shock. Mr. Russo, Richard stammered, we weren't expecting you until next week. Plans changed? The man Russo had a voice like whiskey and smoke with a faint accent Maya couldn't place. Italian, maybe. His eyes landed on Maya and she felt pinned under that gaze, unable to move. What's happening here? There was a beat of silence. Then Richard cleared his throat. Just an internal personnel matter, nothing that requires your attention. If it's happening in a company I just acquired, it requires my attention. Russo's tone was pleasant, but there was steel underneath. Explain. Richard looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Russo's expression stopped him. We're addressing allegations of intellectual property theft regarding the Hartwell Tower project. Ms. Sinclair has been accused of plagiarizing design concepts from Mr. Fletcher. That's not true, Maya said, her voice stronger than she felt. She didn't know who this Russo was, but she wasn't going down without fighting. Brandon Fletcher is my ex-boyfriend who spent 3 years stealing my work. This is retaliation because I exposed him. Russo's eyes shifted to Brandon, who'd paled slightly but maintained his composed expression. You're Fletcher, from Morrison and Wade. Yes, sir. I apologize for the disruption, but I have an ethical obligation. Show me your documentation. It wasn't a request. Brandon hesitated, then slid his portfolio across the table. Russo flipped through it with quick efficiency, his expression unreadable. Then he turned to Maya. And yours? I don't have it with me. My original files are on my home computer. Convenient, Brandon murmured. Russo's head snapped toward him, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. I don't recall asking for your commentary. He looked back at Maya. What's the core concept he's claiming you stole? Maya took a breath, forcing her voice to steady. An asymmetric vertical garden system integrated into the building's structural support. It serves triple function: aesthetic appeal, natural climate control, and stress distribution for seismic resistance. The gardens are positioned at calculated intervals to maximize structural efficiency while creating a visual cascade effect. And when did you develop this concept? The preliminary sketches started 10 months ago. I've been refining it ever since. Russo turned to Brandon. And you claim to have developed an identical concept 6 months ago. Similar concept, Brandon corrected. Great minds think alike, as they say. Indeed, Russo's smile was sharp and humorless. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then looked at Richard. I'm postponing this meeting. Ms. Sinclair, come with me. Mr. Russo, with respect, this is an internal personnel matter, Richard began. Was an internal matter, Russo interrupted smoothly. As of this morning, Sterling and Associates is officially a subsidiary of Russo Architectural Group, which makes me your boss, Mr. Sterling, and I don't tolerate kangaroo courts in my companies. His eyes cut to Brandon. Mr. Fletcher, you're not an employee here. I suggest you leave. I was invited to consult. And now you're being uninvited. Leave, or I'll have security escort you out. Brandon's composure cracked. He looked at Richard for support, but the senior partner was staring at Russo with barely concealed shock. The acquisition wasn't supposed to be finalized until next week. Apparently, Russo had accelerated the timeline. This isn't over, Brandon said quietly, his eyes on Maya filled with venom. I'll file an official complaint with the Architectural Licensing Board. Do that, Russo said pleasantly. I look forward to the investigation. Now leave. Brandon gathered his things and stalked out, his polished veneer completely shattered. The moment the door closed behind him, Russo turned to the senior partners. Meeting adjourned. Ms. Sinclair remains on the Hartwell project. If anyone has concerns about this decision, you're welcome to discuss them with me, privately. The unspoken threat hung in the air. Otherwise, I suggest you all go home and enjoy your weekend. The partners filed out silently, shooting Maya glances that ranged from sympathetic to resentful. She stood frozen, trying to process what had just happened. When they were alone, Russo's attention focused fully on her, and Maya felt the weight of that gaze like a physical thing. Thank you, she managed. I don't know who you are exactly, but thank you for... Dante Russo. I own Russo Architectural Group. We've been quietly acquiring smaller firms to expand our American operations. Sterling and Associates was supposed to be a smooth transition, but apparently your senior partners enjoy corporate drama. His eyes narrowed. Tell me everything. The truth, Ms. Sinclair. I have an excellent bullshit detector, and I won't hesitate to reverse my decision if I find out you've lied to me. So Maya told him. About meeting Brandon at an industry conference 7 years ago, about falling in love with his charm and ambition, about slowly realizing her best ideas kept ending up in his presentations, about finding the stolen files on his laptop the night she'd come home early from a conference, about the brutal breakup where he'd threatened to destroy her career if she told anyone what he'd done. I kept quiet because I was scared and stupid, Maya said, her voice tight with old shame. I thought if I just worked harder, proved myself independently, it wouldn't matter, but Brandon couldn't let it go. He's been systematically sabotaging me for months. Projects I'm on mysteriously lose funding. Clients suddenly have concerns about my capabilities. And now this, accusing me of the exact thing he spent years doing to me. Russo listened without interrupting, his dark eyes never leaving her face. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. The Hartwell presentation is Monday morning at 9, he said finally. I want to see your original designs, all of them with timestamps, and I want to understand your concept from foundation to execution. Can you do that? Yes, but... I'll be at your apartment at 7 tomorrow morning. Text your address to this number. He handed her a business card with a private number handwritten on the back. And Ms. Sinclair, don't make me regret defending you. I won't, Maya said fiercely. Mr. Russo, I swear everything I told you is true. I know. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. I've dealt with men like Fletcher before, mediocre talents who compensate by stealing from people with actual vision. He made one critical mistake today. What's that? Russo's smile was sharp and dangerous. He tried his manipulation in front of someone who doesn't tolerate injustice, especially not in my companies. He left, and Maya stood alone in the conference room, her heart pounding. She didn't know whether to feel relieved or terrified. Dante Russo had just saved her career, but the intensity in his eyes suggested he was a man who demanded absolute loyalty and perfection from the people who worked for him. She couldn't afford to disappoint him. Maya spent that entire night organizing her files, printing documentation, compiling every piece of evidence that proved the Hartwell concept was hers. By the time Dante Russo knocked on her apartment door at exactly 7 a.m., she had 3 months of sketches, digital files with creation dates, even a journal where she'd hand-drawn early concepts with dated entries. She'd also Googled him extensively and discovered that Dante Russo, 36, was one of the youngest and most successful architects in Europe. D started his firm at 28 after winning an international competition to redesign a historic district in Rome. Since then, he'd built an empire, innovative, sustainable architecture that pushed boundaries while respecting history. His buildings were works of art that happened to be functional. Forbes estimated his net worth at $800 million. And he was standing in her modest apartment, looking around with assessing dark eyes, while Maya tried not to feel self-conscious about her IKEA furniture and second-hand decor. Coffee, she offered. Black, no sugar. Russo moved to her dining table where she'd spread out all her materials. He shed his jacket, casual today, just dark jeans and a black sweater that emphasized his broad shoulders, and got to work. For the next 4 hours, Dante Russo went through every single piece of documentation. He asked sharp, incisive questions. He challenged her design choices, pushed her to explain her reasoning, and seemed to be testing whether she truly understood her own concept or had stolen it from someone else. Maya answered everything. She defended her choices, explained her process, and felt the same fire she always did when talking about architecture, the passion that had made her fall in love with the profession in the first place. By 11 a.m., Russo leaned back in his chair and regarded her with an expression she couldn't read. "You're brilliant," he said flatly. "This concept is years ahead of what anyone else is doing. The engineering alone is revolutionary. You've solved problems with vertical integration that firms have been struggling with for decades." Maya's heart soared, "Thank you." Which makes Fletcher's attempted theft even more pathetic. Russo's eyes hardened. Men like him see talented women as resources to exploit rather than colleagues to respect. It's infuriating. "He's going to file that complaint with the licensing board," Maya said quietly. "Even if you believe me, even if we prove the concept is mine, he'll drag this out, make it ugly. He has connections, money, a reputation. I'm just the architect who's about to present the most innovative, sustainable tower design this city has seen in 20 years, Russo interrupted. "With me standing beside you." Maya blinked. "What?" Russo stood and moved to the window overlooking her modest city view. "The Hartwell presentation Monday morning. I'm attending, publicly declaring that Russo Architectural Group stands behind this design and you as the lead architect." "That's not necessary." "It's entirely necessary." Russo turned, and the intensity in his dark eyes made Maya's breath catch. "Maya, may I call you Maya?" "Yes, of course." "Maya, I didn't acquire Sterling and Associates to maintain the status quo. I acquired it because I saw potential being wasted by mediocre leadership. You represent exactly the kind of talent I want in my organization." He moved closer, and Maya was suddenly very aware of how tall he was, how his presence seemed to fill the space. "But more than that, I despise bullies, and Fletcher is a bully using professional mechanisms to abuse someone who rejected him. I won't tolerate it. Why do you care? The question came out before Maya could stop it. You don't know me. For all you know, I could be exactly what Brandon says. You're not. Russo's certainty was absolute. I've spent 4 hours reviewing your work, Maya. I see your design philosophy, your problem-solving approach, your innovation. This is unmistakably yours. Fletcher's documentation is competent but derivative, someone trying to reverse engineer brilliance they don't actually understand. Maya felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them back furiously. I've been fighting this alone for so long. You're not alone anymore. Russo's voice softened slightly. Monday morning, when we walk into that presentation, I want you to remember something. You earned your place in that room. Your talent, your work, your vision. Fletcher is a parasite trying to claim credit for a host's achievements, and parasites don't survive when the host has protection. The way he said protection, fierce, almost possessive, sent an unexpected shiver down Maya's spine. Stand behind me, Russo continued. Not because you need to hide, but because you deserve someone powerful enough to make predators think twice. Can you do that? Maya looked into those dark, intense eyes and felt something shift inside her. She'd been alone for so long, fighting her battles solo, convinced asking for help was weakness. But Dante Russo wasn't offering pity, he was offering alliance, recognition of her worth and a willingness to defend it. Yes, Maya said firmly, I can do that. Russo's smile was slight but genuine. Good, now show me your full presentation. I want to see exactly what we're working with. Monday morning arrived too quickly and not fast enough. Maya dressed in her best suit, a charcoal gray that made her feel professional and powerful, and met Dante at the Sterling and Associates building at 8:30. He was already there, leaning against a sleek black car, looking devastatingly handsome in another perfectly tailored suit. Ready? He asked as she approached. Terrified, Maya admitted. The Hartwell executives will be there, all the senior partners, and Brandon threatened to show up with his legal team. Let him. Russo's expression was utterly calm. Maya, I need you to trust me. Whatever happens in that room, I'll handle it. Your job is to present your brilliant design. My job is to ensure no one interrupts or undermines you. Understood? Understood. They walked into the building together, and Maya felt eyes tracking them. Word had spread fast about the acquisition, about Russo's arrival, about the drama with Brandon on Friday. The office hummed with whispered speculation. The main presentation room was already crowded when they arrived. The Hartwell executives, 3 men and a woman in expensive suits, sat on one side. Sterling's senior partners occupied the other, and in the back, exactly as threatened, sat Brandon with 2 other people who screamed lawyer. The moment Russo walked in, the energy shifted. Everyone stood reflexively, as if responding to royalty. Please sit, Russo said pleasantly. He guided Maya to the front of the room with a hand at the small of her back, a touch that was professional but somehow felt intimate. We have an exciting presentation this morning. Ms. Sinclair has developed a concept that will revolutionize sustainable urban architecture. Richard Sterling stood, his expression diplomatically neutral. Mr. Russo, before we begin, I should mention that Mr. Fletcher has filed formal documentation of his intellectual property concerns. Perhaps we should address that first. No need, Russo said smoothly. I've personally reviewed all documentation from both parties. Ms. Sinclair's work is original, innovative, and precisely what Hartwell Tower needs. Mr. Fletcher's claims are without merit. Shall we proceed with the actual presentation? Brandon shot to his feet. You can't just dismiss. I can and I will. Russo's voice didn't rise, but the authority in it made Brandon fall silent. Mr. Fletcher, you're here as a courtesy, but this is not your presentation, not your firm, and not your project. You'll remain silent or you'll leave. Choose now. The room held its breath. Brandon's face flushed red, but one of his lawyers put a hand on his arm and whispered something. Brandon sat, jaw tight with fury. Maya, Russo said quietly, show them what you've built. Maya took a deep breath and began. She presented hundreds of times in her career, but never like this. With Dante Russo standing slightly behind her, not hovering, just present, solid, a reminder she wasn't alone, Maya found herself presenting with a confidence she'd never felt before. She walked the Hartwell executives through every element of the design. The structural innovation of the asymmetric gardens, the sustainability features, the aesthetic impact, the cost efficiencies. She spoke about architecture as living art, about buildings that gave back to their environments, about creating spaces that inspired rather than merely housed. This was her vision, her passion, and it poured out of her in a way that felt like revealing her soul. When she finished, the room was silent. Then Elizabeth Hartwell, the CEO's daughter and the project's main champion, began clapping. The others joined in, and Maya felt her knees weaken with relief. "That," Elizabeth said, "is exactly what we've been looking for. Ms. Sinclair, this is extraordinary. When can you start?" "Immediately," Russo answered before Maya could. "Russo Architectural Group is fully committed to this project. I'll be personally overseeing the early phases to ensure Ms. Sinclair has all the resources she needs." "Wait," Brandon was standing again, his composure completely shattered. "You can't just... This design is based on my work. I have documentation, I have witnesses." "You have fabricated timestamps and stolen concepts," Russo said coldly. "And now you're interfering with a business meeting. Security." Two uniformed guards appeared at the door. Brandon stared at them, then at Russo, then at Maya with such pure hatred that she involuntarily stepped back. Russo immediately moved, placing himself between Maya and Brandon in a gesture so protective and territorial that the room collectively gasped. "Stand behind me," Russo said quietly, his voice pitched only for Maya. She did, her hand instinctively gripping the back of his jacket, and watched as Dante Russo faced down her ex-boyfriend with the calm of a man who'd never lost a confrontation in his life. "Mr. Fletcher," Russo said pleasantly, "you're trespassing. Leave now, or I'll have you escorted out and file a restraining order. Your choice." "This isn't over," Brandon hissed. "I'll file complaints with every architectural board in the country. I'll make sure everyone knows she's a thief. And I'll bury you in litigation so deep your grandchildren will still be paying legal fees," Russo interrupted, his voice dropping to something dangerous. "I have more money, better lawyers, and absolutely no patience for mediocre men who attack talented women. Test me, Fletcher, please. I'd enjoy destroying your career the way you've tried to destroy hers." Brandon opened his mouth, then closed it. Whatever he saw in Russo's expression made him reconsider. He stormed from the room, his lawyers scrambling after him, and the door slammed with enough force to rattle the windows. Russo turned back to the Hartwell executives with a pleasant smile, as if nothing had happened. "My apologies for the disruption. Shall we discuss the contract?" The next 3 hours passed in a blur of negotiations and signatures. By the time the Hartwell executives left, contract signed, with Maya officially designated as lead architect, she felt like she was floating. This was happening. Her design, her vision, the biggest project of her career. And it was real because Dante Russo had made it real. The senior partners filed out quickly, clearly unsure how to handle the power shift. Richard paused at the door, looking at Maya with something between apology and resentment. "Congratulations, Miss Sinclair," he said stiffly. "Quite a presentation." "Thank you, Richard." Maya's voice was cool. She didn't forgive him for Friday's ambush, and she wasn't going to pretend otherwise. When they were finally alone, Maya turned to Russo. He stood by the windows, hands in his pockets, looking out over the city with an expression of satisfaction. "Thank you," Maya said, "for everything, for believing me, for standing with me, for..." Her voice cracked. "For making Brandon leave before I fell apart." Russo turned, his dark eyes intense. "You wouldn't have fallen apart. You're stronger than you think, Maya." "I was terrified." "Bravery isn't the absence of fear, it's functioning despite it." He moved closer, and Maya's heart rate kicked up. You did that. The presentation was yours. I just made sure no one could interrupt. You did more than that. Maya looked up at him, this powerful man who'd appeared in her life like a storm. You made me believe I deserved to be in that room. Something shifted in Russo's expression. Maya, I need to be honest with you about something. Okay, she said nervously. I didn't acquire Sterling and Associates blind. I've been watching this firm for months, reviewing projects, analyzing talent. His eyes held hers. I've been watching your work specifically. You're the reason I moved forward with the acquisition. Maya's breath caught. What? Your designs caught my attention a year ago, the Riverside project. The way you integrated historical elements with modern sustainability was brilliant. I started tracking your other work and realized you were consistently producing the most innovative designs at Sterling, but getting the least recognition. His jaw tightened. Then I discovered your ex-boyfriend's pattern of theft and sabotage, and I wanted to intervene, but I needed the authority to do it properly. So you bought the entire company? Maya's voice rose. Dante, that's insane. That's business, he smiled slightly. I wanted American expansion anyway. Sterling gave me that plus the ability to protect an architect I admire. It was strategically sound. You admire my work, Maya repeated faintly. I admire you? The words hung between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Your talent, your resilience, your refusal to compromise your vision despite years of being undermined. Maya, you're exactly the kind of architect I want in my organization. The kind I want to build with. Maya's heart hammered. I don't know what to say. Say you'll have dinner with me tonight. Not as boss and employee. We'll figure out those boundaries tomorrow. Tonight, just as two people who share a passion for creating beautiful things. It was wildly inappropriate. He was now technically her boss, even if he'd be returning to his European offices soon. There were power dynamics and professional complications, and 1,000 reasons to say no. But looking at Dante Russo, this brilliant, intense man who'd stepped into her life and changed everything, Maya found she didn't want to say no. Yes, she said, I'd like that. Russo's smile was devastating. Good, I'll pick you up at 7, wear something beautiful though you'd be stunning in anything. He left and Maya stood alone in the conference room trying to process everything that had happened. Her career had been saved. Her biggest project was secured. And Dante Russo, billionaire architect and the most intense man she'd ever met, had just asked her to dinner. Her phone buzzed, a text from Brandon. This isn't over. Enjoy your victory while it lasts. He'll get tired of you just like I did. And when he does, no one will want the architect who slept her way to the top. Maya stared at the message, feeling the old fear try to take root. Brandon would spread rumors, poison her reputation, make her success about anything except her talent. But then another text came through, from Dante. Whatever Fletcher just sent you, and I know he sent something, ignore it. He's finished. You're just beginning. Maya smiled and deleted Brandon's message without responding. Dante was right. She was just beginning. And this time she had someone powerful enough to ensure she got the chance she deserved. The restaurant Dante chose was intimate and elegant. The kind of place with soft lighting, discreet waiters, and tables spaced far enough apart for private conversations. Maya wore a deep emerald dress that made her dark hair and eyes stand out, and the way Dante's gaze swept over her when she opened her door made her feel beautiful in a way she hadn't in years. You're stunning, he said simply, offering his arm. You're not so bad yourself, Maya managed, though not so bad was a criminal understatement. Dante in a suit was impressive. Dante in dark slacks and a fitted shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms was devastating. They talked through dinner, about architecture, yes, but also about life. Dante told her about growing up in Rome, the son of a single mother who'd cleaned office buildings at night so he could attend the best schools. About discovering architecture through sketching the ancient buildings he passed every day. About his mother's death from cancer 5 years ago, and how every building he designed was ultimately for her, proof that her sacrifices hadn't been wasted. Maya told him about her childhood in Seattle, her father who'd been a construction worker and taught her to see the bones of buildings before the beauty. About losing him to a job site accident when she was 19 and throwing herself into architecture as a way to keep him alive. About the pressure of being a woman in a male-dominated field and how exhausting it was to constantly prove she deserved space she'd earned. Brandon sensed that exhaustion, Maya said quietly, swirling wine in her glass. He positioned himself as an ally, someone who understood the struggle, and I was so grateful to not be alone that I didn't see he was actually the threat. He weaponized your trust, Dante said, his voice hard. That's what predators do. They identify vulnerability and exploit it. I should have been smarter. Don't. Dante reached across the table and took her hand, his thumb tracing her knuckles. Don't blame yourself for someone else's cruelty. Fletcher is responsible for his actions. You're responsible only for how you move forward. Maya looked at their joined hands. And how do I move forward? Brandon's threat wasn't empty. He'll spread rumors about us, about why you defended me. People will assume. Let them assume. Dante's eyes were fierce. Maya, I didn't defend you to sleep with you. I defended you because you're brilliant and you were being wronged. If that results in rumors, I'll survive. The question is whether you can. I've survived worse, Maya said softly. But I need you to understand something. I'm not fragile. I'm not some damsel who needs constant rescuing. I appreciate what you did today, but I don't want to be your charity project. Good, because that's not what I'm offering. Dante leaned forward, his intensity almost overwhelming. I'm offering partnership, your talent and my resources, your vision and my platform. We build something together that neither of us could build alone. That sounds like a business proposal, Maya said, her heart racing. It is, Dante's smile was slight. But I'm also offering something more personal if you want it. I'm attracted to you, Maya, your mind, your passion, your strength. I'd like to explore that, but carefully, transparently, with full awareness of the complications. You're my boss, Maya pointed out. Technically, but the Hartwell project reports to you directly. I oversee the entire division, but I'm not your direct supervisor. And I'll be spending most of my time in Europe. We'd work together remotely more than in person. He paused. But if the power dynamic makes you uncomfortable, we can keep this strictly professional. Your career won't suffer either way. I promise you that. Maya studied him, this complicated, intense man who'd upended her life in a single day. The smart thing would be to keep it professional, but smart had never gotten her anywhere except lonely. I'd like to explore it too, Maya heard herself say. But slowly, carefully. I need to prove myself on the Hartwell project without anyone questioning whether I earned it. Done, Dante's smile was warm. We take it slow, public professionalism, private something else, whatever feels right. They finished dinner and walked through the city, talking and laughing, and Maya felt lighter than she had in years. Being with Dante was easy in a way being with Brandon had never been. There was no performance, no pretending to be less intelligent or less ambitious to protect male egos. Dante celebrated her brilliance rather than feeling threatened by it. When he walked her to her door, he kissed her forehead. Chaste, respectful, but his hand lingered at her waist in a way that promised more when she was ready. Thank you for tonight, Maya said softly. Thank you for taking a chance on me, Dante countered. On us. Us, Maya repeated. I like the sound of that. So do I, Dante stepped back reluctantly. I'll see you tomorrow at the office. We need to start building your team for Hartwell. He left, and Maya floated into her apartment, feeling like she was living someone else's life. A life where she got the career she deserved, and a man who valued her for exactly who she was. 4 months later, Maya stood on the construction site for Hartwell Tower, hard hat on her head, watching the steel skeleton rise against the sky. It was just the beginning. They were barely 10 floors up, but already she could see her vision taking shape. The asymmetric design was holding perfectly, the the spaces for the vertical gardens precisely positioned for maximum structural and aesthetic impact. "It's going to be beautiful," a voice said behind her. Maya turned to find Dante picking his way across the construction site, somehow making a hard hat and safety vest look elegant. He'd flown in from Milan yesterday for the monthly progress review and had extended his stay officially for business reasons, unofficially because they both knew the real reason. "It's already beautiful," Maya corrected, gesturing to the emerging structure. "Can't you see it? The way the light will hit those gardens at sunset, the shadow patterns across the facade." "I see it," Dante interrupted gently. "I see your vision becoming real, and you're right, it's extraordinary." They stood together watching the construction crews work, and Maya marveled at how much had changed in 4 months. The Hartwell project was ahead of schedule and under budget. She'd built a team of talented architects and engineers who respected her vision. And Brandon's attempted sabotage had backfired spectacularly. The licensing board had dismissed his complaint after reviewing Dante's documentation, and Brandon's own firm had quietly let him go after rumors spread about his theft. "I heard from Elizabeth Hartwell this morning," Maya said. "They want to discuss another project, residential towers in the waterfront district." "That's excellent news." Dante's hand found hers, hidden from the construction crew by their positioning. "Are you ready for a project that size?" 2 months ago, I'd have said no. Now," Maya smiled. "I'm ready, and I have a hell of a partner backing me up." "Partner," Dante repeated thoughtfully. "I like that term, speaking of which I wanted to discuss something with you." "Okay," Maya said, hearing the seriousness in his tone. "I'm opening a permanent New York office for Russo Architectural Group. Not a satellite, a full headquarters to operate alongside Rome." He turned to face her fully. "I want you to run it. Full partner status, equity in the firm, complete creative control over American projects." Maya's breath caught. "Dante, are you sure? 4 months ago you barely knew me." 4 months ago I knew your work, now I know you, and I'm absolutely certain." His dark eyes were intense. "Maya, you're one of the most talented architects of our generation. You deserve a platform that matches your vision. Let me give you that." "And what about us?" Maya asked quietly. "If I'm your partner, the power dynamics shift. We'd really be equals." "You've always been my equal," Dante said firmly. "But yes, this makes it official. No more concerns about boss-employee complications, just 2 partners building something extraordinary together." He paused. "In business and in life, if that's what you want." Maya looked at this man who'd appeared in her life like a storm and changed everything. Who'd seen her worth when everyone else saw only scandal. Who stood between her and her abuser and made it safe for her to fight back. Who challenged her, respected her, and made her believe she could build the career she'd always dreamed of. "Yes," Maya said firmly, "that's exactly what I want." Dante's smile was brilliant. He pulled her closer, ignoring the construction site around them, and kissed her the way he had that first time. Intense, thorough, full of promise. When they broke apart, Maya rested her head against his chest and listened to his heartbeat. "Thank you," she said softly, "for that day in the conference room, for standing with me when no one else would." "You don't need to thank me," Dante murmured into her hair. "You'd have found a way to fight back eventually. I just made sure you didn't have to fight alone." "We're building something incredible, aren't we? Not just Hartwell, but everything." "We are," Dante agreed. "And Maya, this is just the beginning." Looking up at the tower taking shape, feeling the solid warmth of Dante beside her, Maya knew he was right. Her ex had tried to ruin her career, had done everything in his power to destroy her. But he'd failed, because when it mattered most, when she'd been standing alone and afraid, Dante Russo had whispered those 3 words that changed everything. "Stand behind me." And from that protection, she'd found the strength to stand beside him instead. As equals, as partners, as 2 people building something beautiful together, in architecture and in life. The tower would rise. Her career would flourish. and the man who tried to destroy her would fade into irrelevance while she and Dante created a legacy that would outlast them both. That was the best revenge of all, living beautifully, building brilliantly, and loving someone who saw her true worth.